Welcome to the Brainiate Show, where we talk about all things Salesforce, sharing the coolest features, solutions, and best practices to turn you into a Salesforce rockstar. Here's your host, former attorney turned Salesforce consultant, trainer, and MVP, David Giller.
Stuart Edeal is an IT business analyst, a system admin, and a Salesforce trainer. Stuart holds 6 Salesforce certifications and has significant experience working on the Salesforce platform in the nonprofit sector. In this episode, Stuart shares how Salesforce introduces magic to nonprofits by providing a 360-degree view of constituents, donors, and volunteers. Stuart shares his experience overcoming a serious career hurdle through his involvement in the local Salesforce user group. Stuart, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, David. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
I would love for you to share with my listeners your experience in the Salesforce platform, how you got involved in Salesforce as a tool in the community, share some of your wisdom, some of the awesome experiences that you've had. So tell us a little bit. How did you first get involved in Salesforce as a tool, and what were your first impressions?
Sure. I first was introduced to Salesforce actually as a user of it. I've been a business analyst for many years, and the company I was working with had a Salesforce instance, and its administrator was a woman named Lena Hoffer, who introduced me to Salesforce. And Lena, you'll hear about probably a little bit later. I'll talk about her.
Mm-hmm.
She was the user group leader for the Twin Cities user group, Minneapolis-St. Paul user group. And she is an awesome woman and a great leader, and she loves Salesforce. And she loved Salesforce at the time, was very much involved in the community. And so having her as your admin at your company was an amazing experience for me.
Wow.
My use of Salesforce at the time was pretty much for document management. So we would create, my job was to help author documents for the clients that we were working with, and we were using workflow with escalation rules to identify if documents were done and ready for the next experience and the next level of verification to then finally send to the clients. What I felt like it was pretty slick how the workflow used, how it was used, but the interface itself seemed rather clunky. That was in 2009, and so yeah, I liked what I saw at with Salesforce, but the user experience maybe felt a little bit clunky to me.
So it was a little bit clunky, and where did you turn? You must have felt a little bit lost, frustrated, and where did you turn to try to make sense out of it? Because I'm guessing that's not your impression of Salesforce today.
No. So a lot of my experience, again, came from the fact that I had Lena as my admin, and that impression stayed with me. I actually left that company to go to what I felt was my dream calling. I got a job interview at the public radio station, Minnesota Public Radio, and got a business analyst position there as well in the technology department and helping them to resolve their needs. And they did not yet have Salesforce, but within the first month that I worked there, the executives had a meeting. The CEO came out and said that they needed a way to have a 360-degree view of all their constituents.
Look at that.
And as he kept talking, in my mind, I was seeing Salesforce. I was like, you are basically giving the value statement of why a company would want to introduce Salesforce into their organization. And so I was asked to be on that task force to say, what sort of tools would we use to have a 360-degree view of our constituents? And we had 3 or 4 vendors come in to show their products, And as we started to interview those vendors and look at the products, we realized that all of the vendors that we were looking at had Salesforce as their core base of the platform they were using and building apps on top of Salesforce. And that was enlightening to the task force that was on there. I knew that Salesforce could do this.
Right.
And after seeing all these vendors and looking at some pilot projects, we actually internally decided we would just use Salesforce and roll our own solution, which was a great outcome to come to, that there's this tool that we can use that's built for exactly this need that we wanted to have, and we could customize it our own way. It was very freeing.
I can absolutely imagine. And not only that, once you have experience in the Salesforce platform, you start realizing, wait a minute, the features that they are showcasing that are customized to a particular use case or niche industry, I think I could probably replicate that myself for our organization.
Yeah, and just knowing that there is a user community, that there are local user groups that you can bounce ideas off of. So even though it was our little group that was looking at all these vendors, we still could go back into the community and say, hey, what do you know about this vendor? What do you know about this solution? Or who else in the community is possibly doing things the same way that we're trying to do? Or are there other apps, other free apps or things on the App Exchange that could do this sort of thing? So there's a wide amount of resources and people that can help organizations along the way if you ask the questions.
Yep. So let me ask you, as you're bringing up the community, tell us a little bit more about your involvement in the community, how you're even defined, because everyone sort of defines the Salesforce community in slightly different ways. So what do we mean by community, and what was like your involvement when you first got introduced into the community, and how did it go, where to go from there?
Yeah. So I'll actually answer that question by backing up a little bit and giving you a little bit of history. I've had two different experiences in the community, and I'll be a little transparent, so I'm kind of revealing more information than most people know about me. But my first experience in the community was, I'll say, pre-being laid off and then post-being laid off. Before I was laid off from that first organization, I went to group meetings, went to the user group meetings. I was in the community, but just as a lurker, just watching, maybe every now and then ask a question. Didn't really raise my hand during user group meetings, and tried to stay in the background and just watch what was going on. It was an okay experience, but I realized now that I wasn't really making myself challenged or vulnerable, just by observing. What happened to me in July of 2015 is I was laid off from my company along with several other people. So it wasn't a personal vendetta or anything like that, but it was just a financial decision they had. But I did take it personally, and it lit a fire in me that I decided that day that I wouldn't let that happen again. And so I made some decisions. One of the decisions was that I would really participate. I would communicate with others at the user group, try and meet other people. I would dive into Trailhead. I would volunteer for local groups, and at that same time I decided I'm going to study and get my admin certification. I'm going to join a local study group, and actually the study group that I joined was awesome. It was hosted by Shauna Hughes, who is an amazing community leader and mentor to me, and she's an MVP who I have leaned on many times for questions and support, and so it was just kind of a bit of karma, good karma, that the study group that I would go to was Shauna's study group. And kind of at that time, I decided I'm going to make myself vulnerable. I'm going to do lots of things that will change the way that I interact with Salesforce and the Salesforce community. So a few of the things that I decided to do, one was I changed my Twitter handle. I had been on Twitter for a long time, and I like Twitter, but I decided to change my Twitter handle to Salesforce Stu. Two reasons for that. One is to encourage myself to continue to study for the admin cert. That I figured if I had a Twitter handle that had the name Salesforce in it, that would encourage me to do it. And it also encouraged me to reach out to other Salesforce people. And it stuck, and so I've kept that name. And so I would say in the community, one of the communities that I'm involved with, I stay in touch with, is my Twitter friends, and communicate on Twitter often. Probably communicate on Twitter more than, say, the Success Community or Power of Hub or other groups. And most of my conversations on Twitter are revolving around Salesforce and helping other Salesforce users.
That's awesome. Can you give an example, a recent example of how you leverage Salesforce to help solve a particular problem at work?
Yes. So right now I work at Twin Cities Public Television. So we are a public media organization here in the Twin Cities, and we are a PBS affiliate. And one of the biggest problems that we've had was solved just recently was that we have a member viewer services department that takes care of all the questions from anyone in the community. They can be people that are having problems with their donation, people that are having problems watching something on our over-the-air broadcasting, people that have problems with our website or want to digitally stream a previous show that we have, or people just interested in our organization, asking questions about organization or events that we may be having. All sorts of questions come in, and they come in over the phone, they come in via the web, they come in over email, and a number of different ways that we will get questions from our customers. The way we were answering these questions has been through the Sales Cloud interface. We use cases and case queues to handle those that come in via email and web. But the interface has been hard for our agents to use and resolve. And in watching what they do over the last few months, I saw that they would open up a tab for the account information of somebody that was writing in, and then they'd open up another tab with their contact information. They'd open up another tab for that case information. They'd open up another tab for giving information. And soon, just to handle one case, I'd see a dozen different tabs open in their browser with all this information about the person that they were talking to and the types of information that they were looking at. And I realized that, and the manager of our membership group also realized this, that, hey, we were just at Dreamforce. We've seen other companies do this all within one screen and within a tight console to be able to see this. And I've known about Service Cloud Console, and in talking to our account executive, realized that as a nonprofit, we have access to Service Cloud and Sales Cloud. So over the last few months, I've been helping to introduce them to Service Console. And so we've built a Service Console for our member services group. Now they're able to open up a case, and right within the same screen, they can see all of the relevant information about the account, contacts, the different opportunities, the different cases that person may have opened, different preferences or things that they've subscribed to, all within one screen. It's really cool. And the more and more I work with Service Console, the more I realize that this is really an advanced tool that just would revolutionize. If there is a customer service group out there that's not seen or used Service Console, wow, it would really impress them.
I often tell people that the console is sort of like the regular Salesforce screens on steroids, and they're like, "What does that mean?"
It totally is, and there's pieces of it that we've talked about. We haven't shown them yet, but just introducing some automations to what they're doing today. We can introduce macros so that if there's a certain set of actions that they always do to a specific case or a number of cases, that we can automate those things. We could set up templates so that instead of crafting an email every time someone has a problem, we can just create a template of an email, and all they have to do is click one button to send that response that's edited just for that particular customer. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's great.
And not that, I mean, it requires some education of learning, hey, here's something new, but I didn't code necessarily anything to build this.
Right.
I just watched videos, read some Trailhead modules about it, and then in the sandbox, I tested it out, tried different things to put things together, and I would encourage anyone that wants to do it. They can contact me. I'll help them because I really enjoy this product now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you actually touched on something else that is news to me. So I'm going to ask for clarification. So is it that nonprofits with the 10 free licenses that they get, they can also get the Service Cloud console?
Now this is going to so safe harbor on this one. But
if you're not sure, that's cool. That's totally cool.
I'm going to say not sure. Here's what I would advise for someone that has this question. If you're a nonprofit and you've had your organization for a number of years, say you've had your Salesforce org for 2 or 3 years, I would call your account executive.
Right.
And I would totally ask. So what I did is I called our account executive, asked if we could purchase Service Cloud licenses to test.
Got it.
And he had looked and said, as a nonprofit user, your org has both Service Cloud and Sales Cloud features available. And sure enough, we were able to move over some of our users into the Service Cloud.
Awesome.
It's all about asking. I love talking to my AE because I'll find out, hey, what do they think is new, and so I have a lot of interesting discussions with what do they think is new, how should we approach things, and I do appreciate the Salesforce team kind of looking after the nonprofit orgs that they do.
Absolutely. Not only that, when working for any Salesforce customer to make sure to have a good relationship with the Salesforce AE helps in many respects, because it also opens up the conversation for the sharing of best practices, of ideas, of solutions that the AE might be aware of. So whether you're a Salesforce admin, whether you're the leader of sales, the CMO, the CIO within an organization, and you're already interacting with the Salesforce account executive, to bring up the business challenges that you're faced with, very often that AE will respond by saying, I've seen similar issues with one of the other accounts that I'm responsible for, and either here's how they solved for it, or perhaps maybe I can introduce the two of you and you can collaborate together.
Yeah, and I've had discussions with our account executives about other tools that we don't have today, say Marketing Cloud or Pardot, things like that, and say, some of our managers and users are new to this sort of thing. How would you approach it? And my AE said, how I'd approach it? I would say, let's set up a demo. And I'll get some people to show you Marketing Cloud. I'll get some people to show you Pardot. You don't necessarily have to spend a lot of time and money putting it together. We're here to help you do that. And that's so nice, because otherwise it would be on my shoulder as the admin to define some sort of a Marketing Cloud demo for my users. That would be one more thing that would be on my ever-growing list of things to do.
Absolutely.
So I lean on my account executive to say, hey, we'd really like to see it. How can you help us to make this better? So.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's also a great way to introduce the latest features of whatever tool we're talking about within the demo itself to the people who really need to see it and know it. Because very often in the demo, you might be learning of new features that you were not even aware of yourself.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been in many demos like that myself, where I had those aha moments, and I'm scrambling, jotting down notes for myself, and as soon as there's a quiet moment, I ask the person giving the demo, like, wait a minute, I have not seen those features before. Were they there all the time, or is that new? And very often they're like, well, it's actually in beta. It's coming in the next release, safe harbor. And like, okay, at least I know. I'm really excited, and nobody else in the room has any clue what I'm talking about.
No, I had experience like that in a demo we had recently where they were showing off just, oh, and here's the reporting you can do with that, and they pulled up a report that had a bunch of cross filters and different objects in a custom report, and I'm used to all that stuff, but they were showing some things in there about how they've filtered specific information in a report, and I had to kind of lean in a little bit and say, hey, how did you do that? How did you figure out how to do that? And so I did. I pulled people aside after the meeting, and I said, "Loved your meeting. Now tell me more about the reporting side. Tell me more about this analytics stuff." So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, good stuff. So tell me a little bit about, let's talk about apps on the App Exchange. So of the various Salesforce apps that are on the App Exchange, which two would you say are your favorite and why?
Um, yeah. So a couple of the favorites that I would recommend to anybody. I like to go out to the App Exchange and type in Salesforce Labs in the search.
Mm-hmm.
The Salesforce Labs team, if that is a team, they put out these little. Some of them are actual products, and some of them are sort of templates of things that you can use.
Mm-hmm.
I've used a ton of stuff from the Salesforce Labs in dashboard examples and in auditing my users and things like that I can show on the reporting side. And they have other features of examples of flows that have been built that you can use just to see, okay, now I'm learning how I might build something out, and the Salesforce Labs team has put a few out there for us to kind of play with. So I encourage people to go out there and see what's out there, and it's free.
Mm-hmm.
So you could put it in your test org and see what these different things that the Salesforce Labs team has made.
By the way, I
The second,
couldn't agree more. I have to tell you that I have for my own internal checklist as I'm working with different clients of things, whether it's a brand new Salesforce implementation or I'm helping with an existing implementation. I have a checklist of things just to remind myself, things to either look for or confirm with the client whether or not they need it. And there are quite a few Salesforce Lab apps which are incredibly beneficial. I'll even call out some of them in particular. There's the Mass Edit. I'm looking for it right now as we're talking. I think it's called Mass Edit and Delete, Mass Edit and Update. Just looking for it so I can speak to it accurately. And there are quite a few lab apps that are dashboards, and those are really powerful. It's a great way to accelerate the rollout of commonly used metrics that are used across all different types of industries and organizations of different sizes to keep track of sales, lead intake, lead management, marketing, um, customer service issues. Some great stuff right there. So
yeah, and
that's a
this
good
is
one.
this is one of these things where when I talk to some developers that I know, they say, well, sometimes you'll find code on GitHub or you'll see examples of code that Salesforce offers of here's how to connect certain things or whatever. This is kind of my little hint for that same sort of thing on the admin side is
Right.
you can download some of these adoption dashboards and you can tweak them. You can use them as your template and decide, well, I don't need those pieces of data, but I do need other pieces of data, and it's great. It's just like cut and paste, and only you're doing it with apps and actual components that you can put into your org.
Absolutely.
So the other the other tool that I would say I use every day is a tool called Demand Tools.
Mm-hmm.
And it's by CRM Fusion. I have it open right now on my third screen here, and looking at ways to clean our data. So we, as a membership organization,
Mm-hmm.
we have a lot of duplicate data just from the fact that somebody may sign up for an event, and that same person may sign up for a newsletter, and that same person might be donating us money on a monthly basis, and we just have 3 different records of them from those 3 different systems. So I use Demand Tools on a regular basis to look at the data, see what duplicates I have out there on the accounts and contacts, and am trying to do different things with it to do merging and to try and limit that number of duplicates we have out there.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And Demand Tools offers discounts for nonprofits, I believe.
It does. Yeah, it's pretty kind to nonprofits.
Yeah, that's awesome. Stuart, I know that you're quite involved in the local user groups. Can you tell us a little bit more about the extent of your involvement in the user groups?
I'm involved in, the Twin Cities has, I think, 5 different user groups, and I'm involved in, I believe, 3 of them that I know of. So the user groups that I go to regularly are we have a main Salesforce user group that is probably one of the largest user groups in the country. They have several hundred people that meet on a every other month sort of basis. I will volunteer with them and speak on things that are important to me. Recently, I had a chance to talk about my experience at Dreamforce and encouraged people to help out at their local schools. And one of the nice things in the Twin Cities, we have a lot of people who volunteer at schools and set up sort of Trailhead for All or Salesforce for All days where they'll go into schools and help. Usually it's in the 5th to 6th grade level. We'll introduce Trailhead to students.
Wow.
And introduce business concepts. So a couple times now I've helped out with the lemonade stand Trailhead module, where we talk to the kids about what are the business concepts that we're doing here. Why would you set up a lemonade stand using an online cloud-based database tool? And as we go through the Trailhead module, there'll be lots of questions about, well, what is an object and why am I doing this? And it's a good time to kind of reintroduce yourself to, why are we doing this? But then also explain it to someone who has a total open mind to this sort of thing and wants to learn.
That's great. That has such a huge impact on kids at such a young age.
It's great, and it's a wonderful use case of why do user groups exist. It's not just for themselves. It's for the community as well. And so our user group here does a really good job of outreach and in smaller groups, reaching out to the community and volunteering and doing more learning type events for students of all ages.
Wow, that's really impressive. Tell me, if you could give one piece of advice to someone who is relatively new to the world of Salesforce, what piece of advice would you share with them and why?
Ask questions. It's okay to ask. Let me think if I can tell you a story that would help with this. I went to the Minneapolis World Tour, it would have been 2 Decembers ago, and I was late for the admin session that Mike Gerhold was speaking to. He had a literally packed room. There were people even standing up in the back. There was only one seat left, and that was in the very front middle. And I must have been brave that day because I went ahead and walked all the way up to the front and kind of waved to Mike and said, "Hi, Mike Gerhold, you don't know me, but I'm going to sit right here in front of you and watch your talk." And he did an awesome presentation. He talked about some of the new things were coming out and talked about how admins can help their users. And he talked about his SABWA, Salesforce administration while walking around. By walking around, yeah, SABWA. And then at the end of the session, the woman next to me said, "Hi, my name's Carrie." And we talked a little bit. What do you do? She works at a nonprofit. I work at a nonprofit, and talked about some of the challenges we're having. And the whole room was empty. We were still talking there. And she said, "I'd really like to learn more about how do other nonprofits use it." And I said, "Well, we have this nonprofit user group. It's really good. It meets in Minneapolis every now and then." So I exchanged emails with her. I said, "I'll send you the link to the nonprofit user group." And since then, she's gone to that user group every month.
Wow.
And I see her regularly there. On December of this last year, the user group leaders at the beginning, they said, "We're going to do something different. We're going to have everyone introduce themselves, and we'd like you to say your name, where you're from, and tell us one thing that you're thankful for this year." So I look around, and this woman leans up to me, sitting behind me, and it's Carrie. She said, "I'm thankful for you."
Whoa.
I'm just like,
whoa.
What? I'm thankful for me? And later she said, if it hadn't have been for us talking at that one session at the World Tour, I never would have come to these meetings. I never would ask questions. I never would have had all these experiences. And so I'm thankful that you talked to me and asked questions and then invited me to this nonprofit user group. I'm like, well, so the one thing you can do if you're a new user is, ask questions of people and talk to people. I'm not a leader of the user group. I'm just go to the user group, but I really like it. And so, of course, I'm going to invite anyone that is interested to the user group. But it just kind of knocked me off my feet to have someone say that to me. It definitely, now I'm re-upping my interest in user groups and saying, yeah, these are important. People should get together and network and ask questions at user groups.
Absolutely. And by the way, one of the, to me, the key takeaway, well, there were many key takeaways from the stories that you just shared, but one stands out in particular, which is that you don't need to be a user group leader to have a huge impact, not only on your peers in the workplace, like this woman that you had a huge, I guarantee you had a huge impact not only on her confidence and her ability to use Salesforce, but also could have a tremendous impact on her entire career path and maybe even networking abilities and friends that she's uncovered. But at the same time, even the scenario that you described earlier, the involvement that the user group has with the younger community, the teaching kids on introducing them to the Salesforce platform, teaching them about basic concepts beyond even coding, just database organization, what is an object versus a field, and the business applications for it. So you don't have to be a user group leader to have not only a huge impact on others, but to find it just inherently rewarding through that involvement yourself.
Yeah, and I think some of it also, the thing I like about going to the schools, and I will continue, this one of my things about 2017, I'm going to continue to go to schools when I can, is that the kids get to see that people actually have jobs.
Right.
That I work at a public television station,
Right.
and I'm here showing you things about database objects and how to build something online. What's the connection there? And so to be able to explain that, well, here's what we do as a business, and businesses need to hold information and to do things with information, and so people like me are needed at all sorts of different businesses.
Right.
And some kids light up and say, I never made the connection of I'm going to school to learn something that I will actually do later in life.
Right.
And that connection is really cool. I enjoy kind of seeing that light bulb go off.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's wonderful. That's great. That's great. Those are great stories. Well, Stuart, thank you so much for sharing your insights, your wisdom, your experiences on the podcast. I genuinely appreciate it. I know that my listeners will appreciate it as well. I look forward to having you again on the podcast at some time in the not too distant future.
Great.
And continue doing the awesome work that you're doing. Continue to share the insights, the advice, the guidance that you have with others, whether it's at the user group meetings or on social media. And just keep up the great work. Awesome stuff.
Thanks, David. I enjoyed being on it.
Yeah. Thanks, Stuart. Talk to you soon.
Thanks.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Brainy8 Show. Don't forget to check out the show notes for links to any resources referenced in this podcast. Also, don't forget to head over to brainy8.com to subscribe to the Brainy8 blog, where I regularly share Salesforce-related tips and tricks to help you become a Salesforce rockstar.